World-renowned filmmaker Ousmane Sembène is often regarded as the father of African cinema, and for a clear reason. Throughout his filmography, he has managed to convey deep messages relating to his own experiences and perspectives, as well as Africans worldwide. And it's through his first films, like Black Girl, 1966, and his last, Moulad, 2004, that this perspective becomes all the more clear, and his legacy is carried even further in a 2015 documentary on his life, Sembène.
Qu'essayez-vous de dire à travers vos films?
Non, j'essaie de m'adresser aux hommes, seulement pas de chez moi, mais d'ailleurs à des problèmes qui nous préoccupent tous. Le problème des pays en voie de développement.
Sembène said, "Black people need a black cinema. We need our own heroes."
Born January 1st, 1923, Sembène comes from a modest beginning in Senegal. In an article by Samba Gadjigo, a close friend of Sembène, he accounts for Sembène's adolescence. From a young age, Sembène was expelled from middle school and would lose access to further formal education. However, he often learned from the people around him, including his quote-unquote crazy fisherman father. Around the late 30s and early 40s, Sembène began working as a bricklayer, and through the segregated houses of Dakar, Senegal, he would discover a love of cinema and its messaging power. He would move to Marseille, France, following his service in World War II, where he would discover Marxist and humanistic teachings in his own reading and self-education that would guide him and his films into a new vision of his home and Africa. Sembène hoped to focus his writings on becoming that voice for the voiceless, but found that low literacy rates in his home continent halted them from getting a broader audience.
Nos romans, je parle ici pour tous les romanciers africains, ne sont pas lus pour la simple raison qu'il y a 85% des gens qui sont encore illettrés. Une tournée à travers l'Afrique, discutant avec les gens, j'ai constaté le pouvoir du cinéma en Afrique. Et ce qui m'a amené au cinéma.
In 1962, he traveled to Moscow for that very reason, and returned to Senegal at the end of the year with a camera and a vision.
J'ai du travail chez les Blancs. Est-ce que quelqu'un est venu m'attendre?
One of Sembène's first projects in 1966, Black Girl quite accurately reflects his vision on colonialism and rampant anti-blackness in his home country and abroad. He engages what he refers to as quote-unquote engaged cinema, a practice Marcia Landy explores in the Cinema Journal, quote, which sets itself in opposition to dominant political ideas in cinematic forms, employing the theories and methods of dialectical criticism in all of his works. Sembène's immediate concern is with the problems created for the Africans with the advent of political independence in the 20th century, in particular what he calls cultural imperialism, unquote. The film's main character, Diawana, experiences these exact circumstances, and through the film's form, language, and messaging, Sembène effortlessly portrays her circumstances and translates it into a broader message.
Tire, tu en as? Je sais que tu as fini de te laver. Johanna, veux-tu sortir?
Sors de là! Veux-tu sortir? Dehors!
Johanna, sors!
Featuring a Senegalese woman from Dakar, as she moves to France with Madame for work, the film depicts the oppression and colonial themes that dehumanize her to no end, leading to her eventual suicide. As the similarly named Marshall Landy notes in an article for Jump Cut, quote, in spite of the single and forthright story in Black Girl, the narrative forms are complex, though not mystifying, inviting the audience to engage with the deeper questions posed. Among the diverse stylistic tactics Sembène employs are the following: self-reflexivity, satire, irony, and experimentation with cinematic structural components, such as montage. He blends traditional African quote-unquote storytelling devices with experimental film language. He fuses a form of neorealism with a critique of the real. His goal in all of this is to forge active and exciting links between his films and Senegalese audiences, unquote. This can evidently be seen as we are shown flashes back to Diawana's experiences in Africa before her trip to France began, and instances that showcase her isolation and inability to experience the world outside of Madame's apartment.
Dis bien. La France ici, c'est la cuisine, le salon, la salle de bain et ma chambre à coucher.
Sembène's vision becomes even more clear with this final film, Moulade. The film explores a small village in Djiriso, Burkina Faso, and argues against an Islamic tradition of genital mutilation of girls at a young age occurring when the film begins. Kole, using Moulade, magical protection, protects a group of young girls from the tradition, eventually resulting in a collective resistance by the women and some of the men against the practice.
Wasa! Wasa! Wasa!
In an article by Samba Gadjigo, an African Cinema and Human Rights, he explains how Moulade all the more capitalizes on individual rights and liberties, as defined by the dominant Western human rights discourse, and the power of collective social, political, economic, and cultural action. Sembène describes Moulade as, quote, this Africa, all the while living its own life, is linked to others. Thus we have some external elements whose arrival allows the African to know herself or himself better. In Moulade, two values are in conflict. One is traditional, female excision. It goes back a long time, before Jesus Christ, before Muhammad, back to the time of Herodotus. It's a tradition. It has been made a value in order, in my opinion, to subjugate women. The other value, as ancient as human existence, is the right to grant protection to the most vulnerable. When these two values meet, cross each other, multiply, run up against each other, there is a symbol of our society. Elements of modernity, elements which belong to our cultural substratum, added to them are the elements that belong to our cultural superstructure, namely religious.
Donc c'est comme ça qu'il faut en Afrique. Le doigt dans la plaie. Quand on voit, on croit et on réagit.
Nyenkali, ni mao ma itere dane kan. Be dugu indra kolonchi, ka fle kolonchi, wala ki pa kuda kami ki yere yala. No ma ke nete ardo halalai. Ni ngoni. Ni nti boloko. Musomani site boloko yamble. Musomani site boloko yamble. Wasa!
And thus the film reflects, quote, the current and dominant Western discourse on human rights, with its focus on individual rights, only serving the purpose of maintaining the current world economic, social, political, and cultural order, unquote. And like in the film and real-life Malakunda, a real story of female genital mutilation, quote, the only way to change and restore human rights and dignity is for the African people to fight for a fundamental revolutionary change in the current local and global order. In the dilapidated state of Gaia Chedo, Samba Gadjigo explores his once mentor's old home and the memories they created with one another in his and Jason Silverman's documentary film, Sembène.
He got up and came back with a set of keys and said, here, Samba, now on you can come in and out of this house as you please. I was very moved. But then when I really thought about it, I realized Sembène was not just extending an invitation to me, he was asking me to be a keeper of his legacy.
It's through this film and Samba's stories that Sembène's impact is really characterized, and I encourage that you watch it, as it forms the basis for much of this video.
Je vous remercie. Sincèrement, du fond du cœur, je vous remercie. Nous ne sommes pas seuls dans le monde, mais nous sommes notre propre soleil. Moi, je n'ai pas le tropisme de l'Europe. Dans l'obscurité la plus noire, si l'autre ne me voit pas, moi, je me vois dans le noir. Et je brille. Voilà ma raison.
Across all of his films, Sembène manages to reflect on a colonial past and present existence, while also serving to reflect on oneself. He explores some of the most complex ideas and ideologies while remaining clear and concise, criticizing those in power and the oppression that binds the groups the focused in these films, yet remaining accessible and engaging. His messages represent the workers of Africa and the world over, pushing for a change in the hearts and minds of millions of Senegalese, billions of Africans, and the world's people.
These were the stories of Ousmane Sembène, the father of African cinema.
Ce n'est pas nous qui leur présentons notre propre image. C'est les autres qui présentent l'image du noir, de l'Africain. C'est un travail que j'aime et personne ne m'a demandé de le faire. Personne. J'aime, je le fais, je veux parler avec mon peuple.